It was a normal day in the park. Children were laughing, swings creaked, the air warm with sunlight. Then, a sharp voice cut through the noise. An officer in uniform was yelling at a young boy. No one knew why, and before anyone could react, his hand came down. A slap that stopped the world. People were shocked and froze. No one had expected this. In the middle of the playground, the officer stood towering over the boy, face twisted with anger he didn't understand. No one spoke, until the boy whispered, "I didn't do anything, sir." It had started like any other morning. The sun was kind that day, laying soft gold over Maplewood Park. 8-year-old Eli Thomas had come with his mother, holding a wooden model airplane he'd spent all week building. His laugh carried across, the grass, pure and full of the kind of joy only children know. Near the fountain, Officer Rick Daly was making his rounds. He'd been with the local department 15 years. The kind of man who measured respect in tone and obedience. Some said he was strict. Others said he was cruel. To him, it was all the same. When Eli's little plane veered off and landed near Daly's boots, the boy ran over, waving politely. "Excuse me, sir. Could I get my—" Before he could finish, Daly turned sharply. "You don't run up on an officer like that," he barked. Eli stepped back, startled. "I'm sorry, Daly's voice thundered. "Don't talk back." The park went silent. Parents pulled their children close. Someone started filming. Daly grabbed Eli by the arm, muttering something about discipline and respect. Then came that sound, the one no one forgot, a slap that didn't just hit skin, but the air around it. Eli stumbled. His small hand flew to his cheek. His model airplane hit the ground and cracked in two. A woman screamed. Someone shouted, "Hey, you can't do that." But Daly just straightened his collar, his badge catching the light, and said, "Some kids need to learn early." What he didn't know was that Eli's father, Noah Thomas, wasn't just anyone. Noah was the city's newly appointed director of community safety, a position that quietly oversaw the very department Daly worked for. A man with a calm voice, a quiet temper, and a fierce sense of justice that had made enemies in all the right places. When the call came through, a minor disturbance at Maplewood Park, Noah was in a meeting reviewing new public conduct policies. He didn't think much of it, until he heard his wife's voice on the other end of the phone, trembling. "Noah, it's Eli." The world slowed down. The papers in his hand blurred. And for the first time in years, Noah felt something heavy and cold settle in his chest, the kind of anger that didn't burn, but froze. He drove there faster than he should have. By the time he arrived, the crowd had grown. Parents stood around in a wide circle, whispering, recording, angry but unsure what to do. Eli sat on the curb, a hand pressed to his cheek, his model plane broken beside him. Noah stepped out of his car. The murmurs hushed. Daly turned, ready to assert his authority again, until he saw who was walking toward him. There was no yelling. Noah didn't need to raise his voice. His presence was enough. "Officer Daly," he said quietly, "tell me what happened here." Daly hesitated, suddenly aware of the stares, the phones, the silence pressing down like a storm before lightning. "Kid was disrespectful," he muttered. "Got too close. I just corrected him." Noah looked at his son, then back at the officer. "By hitting him?" Daly swallowed. "Sir, I was within my—" "You were within nothing," Noah said, the words sharp but controlled. "You struck a child." Something in the air shifted. The officer's authority cracked, replaced by a cold realization of who he'd just touched. Noah knelt beside Eli. "Did you do anything wrong, son?" Eli shook his head. "No, Dad. I just wanted my plane back." Noah stood, his calm now edged with iron. He turned to Daly. "You'll explain this. officially, in my office, and just like that, the man who had felt untouchable found himself standing in a crowd that was no longer on his side. Noah took Eli's hand and walked him to the car. Behind them, whispers grew into something louder. Anger, disbelief, solidarity. The story was already spreading. By a sunset, the video would be everywhere. By morning, the whole city would know, and Officer Daly would learn what it truly meant to answer for his actions. By nightfall, the video had crossed every screen in the city. 15 seconds of footage, a uniformed officer, a crying boy, a slap that echoed louder than words. People shared it, raged about it, debated it. And in the morning, the news called it the Maplewood Incident. Inside City Hall, the mood was ice cold. Noah Thomas stood in his glass-walled office, staring at the paused frame on a monitor. Officer Rick Daly's hand mid-swing, the disbelief on Eli's small face frozen forever. He could feel his pulse in his jaw. But when his deputy, Maya Chen, walked in, he spoke evenly. "They'll say it's being handled," he murmured. "They always do." Maya nodded, lowering her voice. "Internal affairs is already scrambling. The union's calling it a training moment." He almost smiled, that tired, bitter smile of someone who's seen the same dance too many times. "A training moment," he repeated. "For whom?" Meanwhile, at the precinct, Officer Daly sat in the break room pretending not to scroll through his phone. He told himself it would blow over, that people exaggerated online. But each time he refreshed, another headline appeared. Each one worse than the last. Officer strikes child in public park. Maplewood PD faces backlash. His phone buzzed. Captain Reeves. "Rick," the voice growled. "Get your head in order. The higher-ups are sniffing around. This kid's father. He's not just some parent. He's Thomas." Daly froze. "Thomas? The safety guy?" "The same. Which means your mess is about to be everyone's problem." Back at home, Noah sat beside Eli, who hadn't said much all evening. They were on the porch, the sky glowing orange with sunset. Eli's cheek was still red. His airplane sat on the steps, glued back together but clearly broken. "You okay, champ?" Noah asked quietly. Eli nodded, though his voice wavered. "Everyone's talking about it. Mom said people online are angry." Noah looked out at the street. "They're not angry at you, son. They're angry at what happened to you." "But why did he do it?" Eli asked. "I didn't even yell." Noah sighed, the weight of years pressing against his ribs. "Sometimes people let power change how they see others," he said. "They stop seeing people. They just see control." Eli thought for a moment. "Are you going to make him say sorry?" Noah smiled faintly. "I'm going to make sure he never does it again." The next morning, Noah arrived at the department headquarters. Not as a father, but as the city's director of community safety. The walls seemed to hum with tension. Every hallway had eyes that looked but didn't linger. Maya was waiting for him at the briefing table. "They're expecting you," she said, "and Daly's already in the conference room." "Good," Noah replied. "Let's get started." When he walked in, the chatter died. Daly sat across the table, his posture stiff, his lawyer beside him. A few senior officers sat in the back whispering behind coffee cups. Noah didn't sit. He placed a thin folder on the table and opened it slowly. Inside was a printed still from the video. That same image of Daly's hand midair. "Officer Daly," he said calmly. "Do you recognize this moment?" Daly's jaw flexed. "Yes, sir." "Good, because the entire city does too." The lawyer shifted in his seat. "Director Thomas, my client regrets—" Noah raised a hand. "Regret doesn't erase misconduct. The question is whether this department stands for discipline or dignity." Because it can't have both when one means hitting children. A silence hung in the air. Sharp, heavy, uncomfortable. Daly looked down. Someone coughed. And then Noah said the words that changed everything. Effective immediately, Officer Daly is placed on suspension pending investigation. The lawyer started to protest. The captain muttered something about public pressure, but Noah didn't back down. This isn't about pressure, it's about principle. That night, the story grew even bigger. Some praised Noah's decision. Others said he'd overreacted, that he was using his position for revenge. Talk shows debated it. News panels dissected it. And in the middle of it all, Noah sat alone in his office, staring at the glow of the city beyond the window. Maya walked in quietly, placing a cup of coffee on his desk. "You did the right thing," she said. "Sometimes the right thing feels like the loneliest thing," he murmured. She gave a small smile. "That's usually how you know it is right." He looked up at her. The faint lines of exhaustion around his eyes softened. "Tomorrow," he said, "I'm ordering a full audit of officer conduct. Every complaint, every report." Maya nodded. "That's going to make a lot of people nervous." "That's the point." Outside, in the quiet streets of Maplewood, a few candles flickered by the park fountain, left there by strangers who had seen the video and wanted to show support. Handwritten notes said things like "Justice for Eli" and "Accountability Matters." Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, not as a threat, but as a reminder. The system was waking up. And Noah knew the hardest part was still ahead. 3 days later, the storm truly began. Emails poured in. Phone lines buzzed nonstop. Half the city stood behind Noah Thomas. The other half, the ones with power, began sharpening their knives. Inside the police headquarters, whispers ran faster than truth. Daly's being sacrificed. They're just making an example of him. Thomas is turning on his own. Captain Reeves called an emergency meeting. He spoke like a man used to getting his way. "Let's get one thing straight," he said. "That video didn't show the whole story. We stand by our people until we know all the facts." A few nodded. Most stayed quiet. Daly sat in the corner, his eyes darting. He didn't look like a man confident in his facts. He looked scared. Outside that same building, a crowd had gathered, mothers, students, old veterans, and families with signs that read, "Protect, don't harm." Every chant echoed through the lobby windows. Back in his office, Noah watched from the top floor. He could hear the distant rhythm of voices rising together, the sound of a community finally refusing silence. Maya stepped in, holding a stack of printed complaints. 32 new submissions in the last 2 days, she said. 32? She nodded. All from people claiming similar mistreatment. Different officers, same attitude. Noah rubbed his temples. "It's like pulling a thread. The whole thing's unraveling." "Good," Maya said quietly. It needed to. But Noah knew what that meant. The system wasn't built to admit guilt. It was built to hide it. That night, he got the first message. An anonymous note slipped under his office door. "Careful who you embarrass. Some walls have ears." He stared at it for a long time. Not afraid, just tired. He'd fought smaller battles before. But this one had teeth. He went home late. The porch light was still on. Eli was asleep on the couch, his repaired plane sitting beside him like a loyal friend. His wife, Leah, sat at the kitchen table. "You're all over the news," she said softly. "Some people think you're trying to destroy the department." He sat down across from her. "No, I'm trying to fix it before it destroys more people." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "Just don't lose yourself in it, Noah. Don't forget you're still their father, not just their reformer." He gave a tired smile. "I'll try." The next morning, things escalated. Daly's suspension triggered a wave of defensive outrage inside the precinct. Some officers refused to report for duty in protest. A few leaked false rumors, claiming the slap was edited or provoked. By noon, the mayor called Noah into a private meeting. Mayor Ruth Alvarez was sharp, respected, and cautious, a leader who liked order more than disruption. "Noah," she began, "you're making people nervous. The union's threatening to walk. We can't afford that right now." He stayed calm. "We can't afford to lose public trust either." Ruth leaned forward. "You've already done what you needed to. You suspended the man. Let the system handle the rest." Noah met her eyes. "The system is the problem. You know it, and so do I." She sighed, sitting back. "You think you can fix decades of culture in one investigation?" "No," he said. "But I can start." There was a long silence. Then she said quietly, "You'd better hope you're right, because if this turns political, they'll come for you too." The next few days blurred into meetings, interviews, and paperwork. Noah's face appeared on every news channel. Some called him a hero. Others called him dangerous. But while the media fought over headlines, Maya was digging deeper. Late one night, she knocked on his office door, eyes serious. "You need to see this," she said, handing him a folder. Inside were internal memos, complaint reports that had been marked resolved with no investigation, dates, names, patterns, all connecting back to one supervisor, Captain Reeves. Noah flipped through the pages, the truth forming like storm clouds. "He's been burying them," he whispered. Maya nodded. "And Daly's just one of many who learned that he could get away with it." For a long moment, Noah just stared out the window, at the same city that had trusted him to protect it. "This isn't one bad officer," he said quietly. "It's a whole system trained to look the other way." The next morning, he called a press conference. He didn't tell the department first. He didn't ask permission. Standing before the cameras, he spoke clearly and without notes. "For too long," he began, "we've mistaken silence for stability. But silence has a cost, and it's paid by people like my son," reporters murmured. Flashes popped. He continued, "There will be a full internal audit. Every case, every officer, every report. We will rebuild trust the hard way, through truth." The moment those words aired, the city split in two again. Some cheered, some seethed. And inside the precinct, Captain Reeves stared at his TV, his jaw tight, eyes cold. He picked up his phone and muttered, "If Thomas wants war, he's got one." Outside, under the gray winter sky, Noah stepped away from the microphones. He could feel the wind picking up, sharp, restless, full of change. The fight had begun in earnest now, and there was no going back. The next week hit like a hammer. Protests filled the streets. Talk shows buzzed, politicians postured, and police cars idled outside City Hall like a silent warning. But inside that chaos, Noah Thomas stayed calm. Too calm, some said. He wasn't just waiting. He was preparing. Maya entered his office early Monday morning, clutching a flash drive like it might burn through her palm. Her eyes were sharp, alert. "I found something," she said. Noah looked up from his desk. "How deep?" "Deep enough," she replied, sliding it toward him. "Complaint records, body cam archives, internal notes, all rerouted through Captain Reeves's Access ID. He's been filtering reports before they ever reach oversight." Noah plugged in the drive. His computer screen came alive with folders, dozens of them, each one stamped closed. No action taken. He opened one at random. A woman's name. A report about excessive force. Attached was a photo. Bruises, hospital notes. And below that, Reeves's comment, "Unsubstantiated claim. Disregard." Noah's stomach turned. "He buried them all," Maya nodded grimly. "And Daly's just one branch of that tree." For a long time, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioner. Then Noah leaned back in his chair. It's time to pull it up by the roots. That afternoon, he met privately with the mayor. Ruth Alvarez looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from too many sleepless nights and too many headlines. She shut the door and whispered, "Tell me you're not about to do what I think you are." Noah slid a thin folder across her desk. Inside were printed screenshots, complaint logs, and Reeves's authorizations. She flipped through them, her expression shifting from denial to disbelief to anger. "Good Lord," she murmured. "I'm holding a public hearing," Noah said. "Tomorrow. Reeves, Daly, everyone involved. The people deserve to see what's been happening behind these walls." Ruth looked up sharply. "You'll burn every bridge in this city." "Then let it burn," he said quietly. "We'll build something better from the ashes." The next day, the council chamber was packed. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters jostled for space. Citizens filled the seats, buzzing with anticipation and anger. Captain Reeves sat at the table, his face carved from stone. Daly sat a few chairs away, pale and restless. Noah stood before them both, papers in hand. "This hearing," he began, "is not about one incident. It's about a pattern, one that's been hidden under paperwork and silence." He clicked a remote. The screen behind him flickered to life, showing complaint summaries, each one tied to the same approval signature. Reeves. Noah's voice didn't rise. He didn't need it to. Every word landed like a gavel. "You authorized the dismissal of 42 civilian complaints. Many involved physical abuse. You marked them as resolved without investigation. Would you like to explain why?" Reeves adjusted his tie, his tone icy. "Director Thomas, this department deals with hundreds of false claims every year." "We can't waste time on false claims," Noah interrupted, clicking to the next slide. A woman's bruised face appeared on screen. Then another. Then another. The room gasped. "These," Noah said, "are not false. They're forgotten." "Because you made sure of it," Reeves stood suddenly. "You think you can smear my name in front of the press? You're not a cop, Thomas. You're a politician with a grudge." Noah didn't flinch. He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "You're right about one thing. I'm not a cop. I'm a father. A father who watched an officer hit his child, and a man who discovered it wasn't an accident, but a culture you built." The silence that followed was electric. Every camera light blinked red. Every pen stopped moving. Then, slowly, Reeves realized it. He was done. The next morning, headlines filled every screen. "Captain suspended after explosive hearing." "Investigation expands into Maplewood PD cover-up." "Thomas exposes corruption ring." The department was in freefall. For some, it was terrifying. For others, it was liberation. Maya walked into Noah's office holding the morning paper. "They're calling you the reformer of Maplewood," she said, half smiling. He chuckled softly. "That sounds cleaner than the truth." "You did it," she said. "No," he replied, looking out at the city skyline. "We started it." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, Noah drove Eli back to the park, the same place where everything had begun. The playground was quiet now. The fountain still trickled softly, and near the grass, Eli's little airplane lay where he'd left it weeks ago, worn and weathered by rain. Eli picked it up carefully. "It's kind of broken again," he said. Noah smiled. "Then we'll fix it again." The boy looked up. "Will they stop now? The bad ones?" Noah crouched down, meeting his eyes. "Some will," he said. "Some won't, but we'll keep making it harder for them to hide." Eli nodded slowly, holding the plane close. "Can we go home?" "Yeah," Noah said softly. "We're finally going home." But as he turned to leave, his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won. You don't know how deep this goes." He stared at it for a moment, then locked the screen and slipped it back into his pocket. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, the truth had sunlight on its side. The city didn't sleep that week. Every headline, every radio show, every living room conversation circled back to one thing: the hearing. For once, people weren't whispering about corruption in secret. They were talking about it out loud, and the walls that had stood untouched for decades were starting to crack. In the days that followed, Captain Reeves was placed on indefinite suspension pending criminal review. Dozens of officers were called in for questioning. Some resigned quietly, some confessed, and a few, the brave few, came forward with evidence of their own. Maplewood was changing, painfully and publicly. Noah Thomas sat through every meeting, every briefing, every sleepless night. He wasn't chasing revenge anymore. He was building a blueprint, one for a department that could finally look its people in the eye. Maya entered his office one morning, a spark of pride in her tired eyes. "The governor's office just called," she said. "They're using Maplewood as a model for transparency audits statewide." Noah smiled faintly. Then maybe all this noise meant something after all. Meanwhile, in a small courtroom downtown, Rick Daly sat with his lawyer, staring at the floor as the judge read the verdict. Suspension without pay, mandatory retraining, community service at a youth mentorship program. Some said it was too light. Others said it was fair. But when the sentence was read and the cameras turned off, Daly approached Noah in the hallway. His voice was low, shaky. "Sir, I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "But I wanted you to know. I watched the footage again, and for the first time, I saw myself the way everyone else did. I was wrong." Noah studied him quietly. "You can't undo what you did, officer," he said softly. "But you can decide who you'll be after it." Daly nodded, eyes wet, and walked away without another word. Weeks passed. The protests faded into projects, real, tangible ones. Community review boards formed, body cameras became mandatory, and Noah's reform policy, once seen as political suicide, became the foundation for something bigger. But through all of it, he never stopped being just Dad when he got home. On Saturday mornings, he and Eli built things again: model cars, kites, little wooden bridges. Each creation seemed to rebuild something invisible between them, too. One evening, Leah found them on the porch, the sky painted in soft purple light. Eli was painting the tail of his airplane bright red. "Looks different now," she said, smiling. Eli grinned. "Yeah, it's stronger." Noah looked at the boy, then at the horizon. "So's the city," he murmured. Later that night, he stood at the window, looking out over Maplewood. Sirens fading in the distance, streetlights glowing like scattered stars. His phone buzzed again, this time a message from an unknown number. It wasn't a threat, just a single sentence: "Keep going. We're with you." He didn't know who it was. Maybe a citizen. Maybe a cop who'd finally decided enough was enough. Either way, it meant something. Hope was catching on. A few days later, he returned to the park with Eli. No cameras, no crowd, just peace. The grass had grown tall again. The fountain's water sparkled. Eli tossed his new airplane into the air, and it soared. Higher, steadier than before. It looped once, caught a breeze, and drifted toward a group of kids playing soccer. They cheered when it landed near them. No fear, no shouting. Just laughter. Noah watched, hands in his pockets, a slow smile tugging at his face. Maya's voice echoed in his mind. "Sometimes the right thing feels lonely." Maybe. But it was never wrong. He turned to leave as Eli came running back, smiling wide. "Did you see that, Dad? It flew." "Yeah," Noah said softly. "It finally did." That night, the city slept quietly for the first time in a long while. No chants, no headlines, no sirens crying out injustice. Just the hum of a town beginning to heal. Imperfect, but awake. And in that stillness, Noah Thomas understood something simple. Justice wasn't a destination. It was a daily choice. And as long as people were willing to make it, no matter how small, no matter how hard, hope would always find its wings.